Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things.
I got 2 phones.
Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there. There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach.
That is the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.
Oh boy.
All right, let's get this retweet here. Don't cry yet.
I am sniffling because it's freezing cold, so that'll just play into the act that this is it's just the suds and not the fact that I'm sad.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are joining us live, it is Thursday afternoon. You've got Kmess and Aidan here, the Birds vs. Boys, Brandon boys, and we thought it's a snow day. We're both home working. And the Carson Wentz news drops. So we needed to go live with, well, actually, Aidan needs to go live with his reaction. If you listen to our show at all, you know Aidan is one of the world's biggest Carson Wentz fans, one of Howie Roseman's biggest critics. So we need to give you our live reaction. You can comment as well if you're listening or watching. I can throw those comments up on the screen about how you feel about Carson Wentz being traded. But I need to turn this over to my buddy, the Bird, Aidan Powers. How are you doing today? Carson Wentz is officially gone. You have a new QB1.
Anytime, like when you have a dog, your family dog, and eventually the day is going to come that you're going to have to put it down. And you always know it's going to happen, but you can never mentally prepare for it. It's kind of where I'm at. But in terms of football, I've got his jersey wrapped around me here like a child and his blankie.
Blankie.
Might as well use it one last time. Yeah.
My Wentzie.
Keep my little Wentzie just to keep me safe.
Anytime is that your thunder blanket? That's your thunder blanket. Anytime there's a
storm blanket. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it, if anyone wants to know.
So we've been talking about this. We actually recorded last night. Of course, our episode dropped today. So we talked about Carson Wentz, what we thought was going to happen, where we thought maybe he was going to go, and it drops today. So let's talk about the trade itself first. So it's a second-round pick this year, right? 2022,
I guess.
Third-round pick this year, a second-round pick that can turn into a first-round if he plays 70% of snaps this year.
75 to be technical. And if they make the playoffs, there's another type of incentive for it too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So what do you think of the trade on both ends?
Just a hilariously bad take for the Eagles, but just considering all things, the fact that they have to eat most of the contract in order for this to occur, but they get the lesser of the haul. For the Colts, this is fantastic. We've talked about it on the show multiple weeks. They have a pretty good roster. They've drafted and developed well. They were a playoff team with Phillip Rivers at 38. So if Wentz is anything like, he doesn't even have to be 2017 Wentz. You look at like a 2018 completion percentage Wentz or 2019 December Wentz. If they get that version, they're going to be pretty damn good in what is a pretty weak AFC South and will get weaker if the Texans lose Deshaun Watson. So this is a big day for the Colts. I am extremely upset with Carson that he is going to this well put together team and left me with this bum ass franchise in disarray. I'm still stuck here. He gets to go on and have fun. It's like I'm sitting at home and all my friends went to senior week and I'm just sitting at home in my parents' house, I guess.
Will you get a Wentzy Colts jersey?
Probably not. I think that's too far.
What about a shirt?
I kind of want to, though. I kind of want to get one of those. Maybe one of the AliExpress ones that cost $20, not the
exactly
ones that cost $20.
Nothing too crazy.
Let's not get crazy.
This is kind of playing out. It played out exactly how you and I talked on the last episode of Birds vs. Boys as well, that, everybody's like, well, why wouldn't you want to be traded for like 3 first-round picks? Because then that shows your value. No, if I'm a quarterback like Wentz, I want to be traded for the least amount possible, because then the team I'm going to isn't giving up much and they can still use their draft capital well to put pieces around me. So now there's not a king's ransom that they gave up for him. So now they're getting Carson Wentz and keeping basically their good picks.
So they get their franchise quarterback and they keep their first round pick for this year to add on to the playoff team that they already had that was driving down the field to tie Buffalo in Buffalo. So yeah, it kind of worked out for Indianapolis. It worked out for Carson. It worked out for Indianapolis. And the only one it didn't work out for is that rat, Howie Roseman, as usual. Mr. Cap Wizard, who now has to take the biggest salary cap hit of all time to pull this off.
Like, how does he sit down with Jeffrey Lurie today and be like, all right, this is the deal we're getting. We're getting rid of him, and we're still stuck with the money?
I have no clue. I don't know how many chances one person can get. That's part. So I had 3 topics.
Yeah, let's go to
go over. Well, we're on the one, just how the trade works out for the Eagles and the Colts and how it benefits the Colts. The other one was just like the systemic failure, and most of that is Howie Roseman. And then the last one is just like Carson Wentz and what he meant to the city and everything like that, and the hope that he gave. But yeah, I mean, for Howie, I don't know how many chances he gets. And it just felt like for Carson, he was bad. No one is denying that. He was terrible last year, but it oftentimes felt like he was a kid taking an SAT test and they didn't hand him pencils or a calculator and said, here, do the test. And then when the test results came back bad, everyone was like, well, this kid must be dumb.
And the test was in Russian.
Yeah, the test was in a different language. None of this stuff is what they studied. He didn't have a calculator or a pencil to fill it out. Then everyone's like, well, hey, how come these test results are so bad? This kid must be stupid. Well, no, just do a next level critical thinking. Why does it look like this kid is stupid taking the test? Oh, they never handed him a number 2 pencil. That must be why. And just to draft this badly, really, since Carson Wentz, is how you ended up in this spot. And I think the main takeaway from today, whether you are a Wentz hater, I'm not even going to trash talk them. I will get my vindication. Or a believer in Wentz. One way or another, I think everybody felt this was the right move. It's not that it is the right move. It's the fact that we got to a point where this was the right move.
And it had to be the move.
Had to be. I didn't see him walking back into that locker room given everything that happened. And to be in a position where that was your only option. And you talk about why this is such a bad trade for the Eagles in terms of draft capital and return. That would be why, because there was no instance in which Carson Wentz was walking back into that locker room.
And taking this on terms of me as a Cowboys fan, who I went up to my wife's room today and took out her little Wentz jersey. And she goes, ever since... Oh, she has a black one. I bought it for her. And she goes, ever since you bought this from me, like everything's been downhill, like from the day. I was like, yeah, I bought it from a voodoo witch in Dallas. But it feels like 27 years ago, we were having these debates about Dak or Wentz or Dak. And like all Philadelphia fans are like, how's it even a question? Dak sucks. And I'm not saying Dak's a better quarterback still right now. But to have Dak seemingly going to be in this division longer than Wentz, and he's just gone now, it's like, what the fuck just happened?
It does feel like that. Like you just woke up and you're like, wait, wait a second. Let's just reverse. How did we get here? We were supposed to be arguing about Dak versus Wentz for 10 years. What happened?
And Wentz was going to win every time.
Every time. Now I guess it's Hurts versus Dak, but until they draft Zach Wilson at 6, and then it's Wilson versus Dak, and then we'll get tired of Wilson in 3 years because he's throwing to Greg Ward every single time, and receivers can't get open, and the line can't block, and the tight ends aren't good, and we're right back to where we started.
And then you guys will have Tua's brother from Maryland.
Yeah. I can't wait till we talk ourselves into Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma in 2 years. God. Like, I don't know. Maybe he's the next best thing. No, stop. Like the whole point of trading up for Wentz is that you could finally have stability at the quarterback position. We went over it on one of the episodes. We talked ourselves into Michael Vick after McNabb. And that was after we talked ourselves into Kevin Cobb for a half. And then when Vic got hurt, we talked ourselves into Foles. And then we traded him for Sam Bradford. And while we didn't really talk ourselves into him, it was forced upon us. And then we talked ourselves, then we had Wentz, we talked ourselves into Foles again. Now it's Hurts. It's like the one position where you need stability is the position where they're creating instability for the past decade.
It's just enter name. And then that video, he's our baby. And
he's our baby.
Put any name, he's our baby.
Since Jeff Garcia, we've talked ourselves into a new baby about pretty much every other year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You get one Super Bowl that way, but it's not a sustainable method.
No. And for that Super Bowl not even to come under Wentz's watch, well, I guess it was technically under Wentz's watch, but without him, it's still it just seems like it was just this perfect storm from that season when they won the Super Bowl without him after he had an MVP season. It's just, I don't know, maybe things just were never meant to be. And to have the number 2 and number 1 overall pick in that draft traded within weeks from each other years later is just mind-blowing.
It is, and it just kind of shows how things are sped up in today's society. We want everything to be done within 5 minutes, and that it happens not just, we see it in the NBA. Guys are on different teams in 2 years all the time. But the same applies here, where I don't know if it'll be a trend going forward because 2 huge contracts were dished out to Goff and Wentz, and I think they will be a cautionary tale for other teams going forward. But it just kind of goes to show, like, things go quicker these days. There's not as much time to draft and develop guys. The quarterback needs to be ready to go right now. We don't have time for you to sit and watch and wait and learn. You need to be ready week 1. And that used to not be the case.
Yeah. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers when he came on and he sat behind Brett Favre.
And Jordan Love right now, that's one of the rare instances where a guy actually is going to sit. You saw a team like Arizona. They gave up on Josh Rosen in a year. And we're like, you know what? It's not going to work out. We're going to go with Kyler Murray. And the Dolphins are in a position where they could give up on Tua within a year if they can get Deshaun Watson. So it's just the how the league operates these days and how society operates. We want everything quicker. We want it done faster. We want
if you want more
immediately.
If you want more about that, about Tua and Deshaun and all these quarterbacks and wanting it right now, listen to the latest episode that dropped today, 46 of Birds vs. Boys. You can catch that right here on Branded Sports, Birds vs. Boys, wherever you want it. But we'll dive deep into that on that episode. But this is more Wentz. So what else do you have about Carson, what he meant to the city and what it means going forward for him and the Colts?
Well, that's kind of where I want it to be, is just it obviously didn't end how any of us wanted to. Fans, team, Carson himself. This was never how it was supposed to go. But to just negate everything he's done for this city would be ridiculous. And let's go back and rewind to 2015. This was an Eagles team under Chip Kelly. I think fans were lethargic. It was pretty helpless, hopeless, just a dark abyss. Everybody remembers their Thanksgiving being ruined, getting destroyed by the Lions. You remember a game against the Tampa Bay Bucks at home where Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdown passes. This team was in purgatory. They definitely weren't good enough to win a Super Bowl or even make the playoffs, but they weren't bad enough to get the number 1 overall pick. And then they traded up for Carson Wentz, and it was almost immediate that hope was restored, the culture was changed, and Doug Peterson is a part of that too. And they go 3-0 to start his rookie year. They beat the Steelers, and the Steelers are saying to them after the game, and Brandon Graham, we'll see you guys in the Super Bowl. That was unfathomable just a calendar year before. But Carson came in and changed all that, and he was the great hope for stability, for success. And in a way, he was that because within 2 years, we had a Super Bowl. And part of that is just because of the attitude and the culture that he brought with him once he got there, where he was, quote unquote, the guy.
And he was. And, as a Cowboys fan as well, I was fearful of him. And I was like, oh, I got to deal with this guy for the next 10 to 12 years, twice a year. And then watching him in the playoffs, like I immediately, the first thing that comes to my mind are 2 plays. And I think they might both be against the Ravens The one where he was sacked. He was in a thing and he was gone. And then bang, all of a sudden he was up the middle and he ran for about, 26 yards maybe. And then the other one where he made that throw in the corner of the end zone to, who was it? The running back, Miles Sanders. Who was it?
Corey
Yeah.
Clement.
And you're just like, against Washington, right? In Washington.
Yeah. Same game. It was the same game.
Just like nobody should be able to make that throw. So that's what I remember. And then, I also remember broken Wentz, but we don't have to talk about that right now.
That too. No, I mean, that does play a part in it. And it's part of what got us. Like I said, it was the worst case scenario. But no, like those moments, if you're choosing to only remember that he had a terrible 2020 and not the 2017.
Not fair.
And I don't understand the people who discredit the saying that Wentz didn't help them win a Super Bowl. I just think that team showed up in 2017. They're like, all right, we finally have our guy. We finally have our coach. This is it. Once they added Alshon Jeffrey and gave him some pieces that weren't Paul Turner and Bryce Treggs, they were off and running. And that's what I'm always going to choose to remember. And that's why I think he'll have success with the Colts. In the brief instances where they gave him weapons, he was terrific.
Yep. I want we didn't talk about this before we went live, but I tweeted this from Brandon right before we came on, and I want your live reaction to this. I know you've heard it before, but this is Doug Peterson talking to John Lynch back in the day before a game about Carson.
I wonder what's this guy. This kid's John Matane. Unbelievable. You never know about a player really, truly until you get him in your building and you can work with guys. This kid's unbelievable. The way he prepares, the way he practices, and for this city, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's been fun. As long as we don't screw him up, right?
Who says that? Who says as long as we don't screw them up? Like, why would that cross your mind? It's like if you were driving a car and you're like, well, we'll get to our destination as long as we don't drive off a bridge. Like, who says that?
You're the head coach of a National Football League team. Like, you need he's been fun. Can't wait to keep coaching him. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, why would you just not at the sentence? Yeah, love the way he practices and prepares. We should be all right. Or we could drive off a bridge. Who knows?
Maybe we'll draft another quarterback when we don't need one.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing. I know Reuben Frank wrote an article today saying that Carson Wentz era didn't end today. It ended in April. Couldn't agree more. And if they draft a quarterback at 6, it's pretty much an admission of failure of the Hurts pick. And to be at that point where you give up on Wentz and then you have to give up on Hurts and then you draft another guy, it's like, oh my God, how can you continue with this front office where we talked about this last night? They committed $100+ million to Wentz in 2019. Then they drafted Hurts at 53 when they already had Wentz for some reason. Now they might take a guy at 6. They're the friend, keep plunging into toxic relationships and saying, no, this time it's going to be different. It's never really different. It's hard to trust them here drafting yet another quarterback if they go that route.
And if they go that route, they're going to be surrounding that quarterback with the same crap that Wentz was surrounded with. And what? Reagor and Fulgham are going to be your 1 and 2. Alshon's going to be gone. Deshaun's going to be gone. Ertz is probably going to be gone. So he's got Goddard is probably going to be his best weapon. And Miles Sanders. But they don't run Miles Sanders, so it doesn't matter.
Maybe they will now. Who knows? But yeah, so I mean, they haven't drafted a Pro Bowl wide receiver since Jeremy Maclin is either 2009 or 2010, I forget. And Deshaun Jackson were 1 year apart. So we're talking like the most productive receiver that you've drafted since then is Riley Cooper. And people keep coming back to the quarterback being the problem. No, guys, we are striking out too often in the draft, specifically with the receiver position. And then we keep going back and we're blaming the same thing. And that's my fear is, okay, we've moved on from Carson Wentz. It's Jalen Hurts this time. Well, what's changed for Jalen Hurts? He's still thrown to receivers who can't get open and can't catch and everything like that. And if you draft a quarterback at 6, that means you use the top 10 pick and where you could have got Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith and instead had to use it on a quarterback again. So that quarterback will again be in a position where there aren't skilled playmakers around him.
It's a beautiful day to be alive as a Cowboys fan.
You're not out of the woods yet,
no,
mister.
Not by any means.
It's just my day to be sad.
All right. So before we get out of here, forward thinking for Wentz and the Colts. What do you think this means for them? What do you think this means for Carson? How do you think Carson feels right now in this moment?
relieved, unfortunately. I mean, it makes me sad to think that my favorite player is happy to be out of here, but I really can't blame him from a standpoint of just really never getting credit for anything, but getting the blame for everything. That's got to be a hard way to live and just like get shitted on the internet all the time. And only time it ever pops up on the internet is to be like, hey guys, so audience of one is raising money for starving people, or hey guys, this is my favorite Bible verse. And to see him become this villain without ever saying anything and just really having one bad season, it's been rough. So I think a sense of relief has to be with him right now.
I agree. And I think he's also excited about hunting out in Indianapolis rather than in Philadelphia.
It's closer to North Dakota, that's for sure. I wonder what I know he lives down in Houston, so we'll see. But I think the Indianapolis media market is more geared to him. Not that anyone can survive in the Philadelphia media market long term. It's just not geared that way. It's too toxic. Let's just be honest with ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I think Indianapolis was the perfect fit. We talked about it. I don't blame him for being like, yeah, no, I don't want to go to Chicago.
So does this put Indy in the driver's seat? I'm not going to say that this makes them the best team in the AFC because obviously the Chiefs are there. Are they there, right there, fighting for the second best team in the AFC with the Bills?
You have to think that. I mean, judging, they played each other in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very close game, contested game. Bills win in the end. And you've got 38-year-old Phillip Rivers out there. Okay, replace him with Wentz. And like I said, we're not even talking 2017 Wentz. Give me Carson 2019 December 12th against Washington. If you get that version, you win that game, you know? So you have to be really happy as a Colts fan today with where you're at. And if you aren't sold on Carson Wentz at first as a Colts fan, I don't blame you. You need to see this like work out in the long run, in the long term, or at least see him on the field at first. But I think you got to be pretty happy with not having a huge haul having to give up. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You're right back to just not having a solid quarterback position, which you've been operating under since Andrew Luck retired.
Mm-hmm. When's the next time the NFC East plays the AFC North?
It is not this year. We play the West this year, so it'll be the following season. So not this year, but next year. It would be in Indianapolis. It would not be in Philadelphia. So we will not get the reunion that people would like to see.
But those Eagles fans will be traveling out there. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Always.
God willing, we have fans in stands by then.
That's true. By 2022. Let's hope. Who knows? At this point, nothing will surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one serious thing on Carson before we head out of here and go back to our real jobs. Do you have anything else? I'll just end it with my thank you to Carson.
No, as just, like I said, I'm a Eagles hater as a Cowboys fan. I've never, ever been a Wentz hater. I think he got sold the short straw. Yes, he wasn't great this year, but like you always said, look at the team, look at the pieces, look at the drafting that has been around him. It's like, giving a Ferrari regular gas when you're supposed to put premium in it. It's horrendous what they did to them. Like Doug said, maybe he'll be great unless we drive off the cliff. They drove off the goddamn cliff. So I'm rooting for him. I like the Indianapolis Colts. I like the way that they've built their team. They draft guys like Quentin Nelson. I think this is going to be an exciting time for him. I think he's going to be rejuvenated, and I would not be surprised if I see them in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs next year.
I would not either. I really would not, especially in that division. I think you're right. Well,
but I hope he plays under 75%, so the Eagles only get a second-round pick.
I can guarantee you it'll be something like he misses a few games, Jacoby Brissett comes in, wins a few, then all of a sudden you're at the point where, all right, he's at 75%, but they're 12-3, and he doesn't need to play the last game because they already have their playoff position locked up. So he doesn't play, and he doesn't play 75%. That will absolutely happen to the Eagles.
God willing,
yeah. Oh, boy. But, yeah, I can definitely see that happening.
All right, let's hear it.
So I just wanted to say thank you, because I don't know how many people are going to say it. It's recency bias, and I get it. He was not good in 2020, and there's reports out there that he wasn't easy to deal with, but none of us like Howie Roseman either. So I don't know why you're that mad at Carson. But anyway, I honestly want to say thank you for just what I mentioned earlier, him changing the culture here in this city and just like giving people hope. Because after 2015 and really for years, man, like we did not have a Super Bowl. And after Andy Reid, we've had brief glimpses of hope. 2004, we had a brief glimpse, but I think everyone can agree when he was drafted, the culture changed, everything changed in this city. And I think about families like the Dutch Destroyer, where their son was buried in Carson's jersey, and just like for that family to just have this guy to cling on to, and just like for 3 hours every week, they don't have to worry about their child having cancer, and the quarterback of their favorite football team is wearing their son's bracelet like that. You can't measure that. And there's so many instances of that. Giovanni, who has gone viral. He's great. I love his energy. Just thinking about like all the surgeries and all the stuff that kid has to go through. And he meets Carson and breaks down crying. I probably would have done the same thing. And just like that moment, and just how Carson gave that little kid hope. Like that kid was inspired and wanted to get into sports media, and Carson was his favorite player. I think about Seamus Clancy, like writing this amazing article about how he was depressed. And once Wentz came into the league and was playing for the Eagles and playing well, like that gave him a reason to wake up in the morning and like have hope and have happiness. And I think a lot of us were at that point, like just having a reason just to be happy in life, and watching this guy and watching this team gave us that reason for, even though it was a brief period of time where you're like, at least for 3 hours, I can escape the reality of my life, watch this guy play, and feel a sense of enjoyment that has been lacking in my life. And if people want to take away the 2020 season and you want that to be your lasting impression, that's fine. But for me, it's always going to be the impression of what he did for the city in terms of hope and in terms of changing the culture. And really just, it hasn't been an easy few years for a lot of people. And for 3 hours out of their week, out of their day, Carson Wentz gave them an escape from that.
That's beautiful.
That's that.
That is that. That is that. Carson Wentz is off to Indianapolis, but we'll dive much more into that in our next episode of Birds vs. Boys. Next week, like I said earlier, episode 46 dropped today. So make sure you listen to it, watch it on YouTube, listen Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Birds vs. Boys Pod on Twitter, and absolutely check out our TikToks because we're TikTok famous. So I'm 33 years old. I don't know how TikTok works. I just talk. Other people put it up. So follow us. Thank you. And bye, Carson.
Thank you, Carson.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds vs. Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things.
I got 2 phones.
Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there. There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach. That
Be the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.